see everyone out, all of our members and any visitors we have with us today. I'm thankful to be here, to be able to bring a lesson to you from the Word of God. And I want to make this clear at the beginning. All glory and all praise to God the Father, to God the Holy Spirit, and to our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Doesn't belong to me. Doesn't belong to me. It belongs to God. That's where it belongs. And coincidentally, we're going to study a lesson that starts the same place our Bible lesson was at today. So we're going to start with an introduction, and we're going to look at Exodus, first in Exodus chapter 17, and then go to Numbers 20 for an introduction for our lesson today. In Exodus chapter 17, turn there in your Bible, please. Exodus chapter 17. Here Moses is leading the people out of Egypt toward Sinai, where they are going to worship the Lord, where the Lord is going to make them his people. And in Exodus chapter 17, we read there, "Then all the congregation of the sons of Israel journeyed by stages from the wilderness of Sin, according to the command of the Lord, and camped at Rephidim. There was no water for the people to drink. Therefore the people quarreled with Moses and said, 'Give us water that we may drink.' And Moses said to them, 'Why do you quarrel with me? Why do you test the Lord?' But the people thirsted there for water, and they grumbled against Moses and said, 'Why now have you brought us up from Egypt to kill us and our children and our livestock with thirst?' So Moses cried out to the Lord, saying, 'What shall I do to this people? A little more, and they will stone me.' The Lord said to Moses, 'Pass before the people, and take with you some of the elders of Israel, and take in your hand the staff with which you struck the Nile, and go. And I will stand before you there on the rock at Horeb. And you shall strike the rock, and water shall come out of it, that the people may drink.' And Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel. He named the place Massah and Meribah because of the quarrel of the sons of Israel, and because they tested the Lord, saying, 'Is the Lord among us or not?' Now in Numbers chapter 20, we see a similar scene in Numbers chapter 20. Numbers chapter 20, "Then the sons of Israel, the whole congregation, came to the wilderness of Zin in the first month, and the people stayed at Kadesh. Now Miriam died there and was buried there. There was no water for the congregation, and they assembled themselves against Moses and Aaron. The people thus contended with Moses and spoke, saying, 'If only we had perished when our brothers perished before the Lord. Why then have you brought the Lord's assembly into this wilderness for us and our beasts to die there? Why have you made us come up from Egypt to bring us into this wretched place? It is not a place of grain or figs or vines or pomegranates, nor is there water to drink.' Then Moses and Aaron came in from the presence of the assembly to the doorway of the tent of meeting, and fell on their faces, and the glory of the Lord appeared to them. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, 'Take the rod, you and your brother Aaron, assemble the congregation, and speak to the rock before their eyes, that it may yield its water. You shall thus bring forth water for them out of the rock, and let the congregation and the beasts drink.' So Moses took the rod from before the Lord, just as he had commanded him. And Moses and Aaron gathered the assembly before the rock. And he said to them, "Listen now, you rebels, shall we bring forth water for you out of this rock?" Then Moses lifted up his hand and struck the rock twice with his rod, and water came forth abundantly, and the congregation and their beasts drank. And we know from the lesson, the Bible lesson this morning, is that they didn't treat the Lord as holy because they didn't follow the instructions. Instead of speaking to the rock, they struck the rock. They didn't follow the instructions of the Lord. And so we see here that in the wilderness here, before they got to Sinai, they brought forth water from the rock. And then even after the rebellion, even after the sons of Israel rebelled against God, they were still bringing forth water from the rock. Moses, afterwards, when they were going to bring the children of Israel into the land, the promised land, after the Israelites died in the wilderness, in Deuteronomy, first we see the picture of Moses bringing water from the rock. That's the picture there. But in Deuteronomy chapter 32, the Song of Moses, in Deuteronomy 32, verses 3 and 4, Moses said in his song, "For I proclaim the name of the Lord and ascribe greatness to the Lord, the rock. His work is perfect. For all his ways are just, a God of faithfulness without injustice. Righteous and upright is he." And then in verse 15, he says, he called God the rock of his salvation. In verse 18, he said, "You neglected the rock who begot you and forgot the God who gave you birth." In other words, what we see here is that Moses related God to the rock. Back when we see that Moses brought forth water from the rock. What God is to them is not a physical rock, but he relates God to the rock that is a figure of speech. A figure of speech that the rock is perfect. The rock that saved Israel. The rock that begot Israel. The rock is a figure of speech for God. It means that God is immutable. It means God does not change. That God is not susceptible to change. That God is eternal. That God is powerful, never changing, like a rock. God's loving kindness is everlasting. God's word endures forever. That he is a refuge. That he is a deliverer. And then from Moses onward, we see Israel referring to God as their rock, as someone they can trust, as someone that is a refuge to them, as someone that they can look to for strength. 500 years later, we see David. We see David referring to God as his rock. He speaks of God as his rock. And in But before we get there, before we get to David, you should, if you have the time, look in 1 Samuel chapter 2. 1 Samuel chapter 2, you see Hannah, and she refers to God as a rock. When Hannah had prayed to God for a son, God heard her prayer and gave her Samuel. And then when she brought Samuel to Eli, she said that, "Nor is there any rock like our God." She's referring to God as a rock when she was praying a song of thanksgiving about God. But David talked about God as his rock in many scriptures in the Psalms, but 2 Samuel chapter 2, 2 Samuel chapter 22, verses 2 and 3, David said, "The Lord is my rock and my fortress and my deliverer, my God, my rock in whom I take refuge, my shield and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold and my refuge." And then you can also see that in all those other verses. But if you want to look and see about the Psalms, you can look at a psalm that talks about Moses in the wilderness and how the rock that brought forth water, how that idea was turned into their idea of God the rock in Psalm 78. In Psalm 78, Psalm 78, verse 15, says, "He split rocks in the wilderness and gave them abundant drink like the ocean depths. He brought forth streams also from rocks, and caused water to run down like rivers." But then later on in that psalm, in verse 35, it says, "And they remembered that God was their rock, and the Most High God their Redeemer." So it shows you that in the beginning, God brought forth water from the rock for the Israelites, and then the idea came forth that God was their rock. It became God was their rock, a figure of speech from the idea that God brought forth water from the rock. The Israelites in the Old Covenant looked to God for their salvation. God was their rock, their hope, their refuge. They poured out their heart to God for deliverance. David was delivered from Saul and all his enemies because he trusted in God, his rock. And 1,000 years later from that, 1,000 years later from David, we have Jesus who came on the scene. He showed deity in human form. Christ was God in human form. We know this. In Colossians, in the book of Colossians, we see that it tells us that Jesus was deity in human form. Colossians 1, verse 13. Says, "For he rescued us from the domain of darkness and transferred us to the kingdom of his beloved Son, in whom we have redemption, the forgiveness of sins. He," meaning Christ, "is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. For by him all things were created, both in the heavens and on the earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities, all things have been created through him and for him. For he is before all things, and in him all things hold together. And then in chapter 2, verse 9, says, for in him all the fullness of deity dwells in bodily form. Jesus revealed the character of God in human form. He is the Son of God. Jesus was part of the Godhead. He gave up that form to become human like us. He did this to fulfill the Old Testament prophecies about the Messiah. This way he could be the perfect sacrifice for our sins on the cross. He was resurrected and is reigning in heaven as King and High Priest over the kingdom of God. Jesus fulfilled the old covenant. He fulfilled all of it. All of his sacrifices are a shadow looking to the ultimate sacrifice of Christ. All of the teaching in the Old Testament was a teacher preparing the way for Christ and the new covenant. This is taught in Galatians chapter 3, verses 24 through 29. Galatians 3, 24 through 29, it says, but before faith came, we were kept in custody under the law, being shut up to the faith which was later to be revealed. Therefore the law has become our tutor to lead us to Christ, so that we may be justified by faith. But now that faith has come, we are no longer under a tutor, for you are all sons of God through faith in Christ Jesus. So it says the old law brought us to Christ, or brought everyone to Christ. The old law was just to teach us about faith in Christ. Christ fully revealed God's love. Jesus' life and his sacrifice on the cross fully manifested God's love. In Romans chapter 5, verses 6 through 10, says, for while we were still helpless, at the right time Christ died for the ungodly. For one will hardly die for a righteous man, though perhaps for a good man someone would dare even to die. But God demonstrates his own love toward us in that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. Much more then, having now been justified by his blood, we shall be saved from the wrath of God through him. For if while we were enemies, we were reconciled to God through his death of his Son, much more, having been reconciled, we shall be saved through his life. Did you get that part about enemies? It says we were against Christ. When we were sinning against God, we were enemies. Christ died for us to demonstrate God's love fully toward us. Even though we are enemies against Christ, enemies against God, Christ still died for everyone, even enemies, even those who are against God. That's the full demonstration of God's love, the full demonstration of how God loves us, how Christ loves us. And so therefore, Christ is our rock. He is, like the figure of speech in the Old Testament, Christ is our rock. The scripture that was read, 1 Corinthians chapter 10 and verse 4. Did you understand what was read there in 1 Corinthians chapter 10 verse 4? I don't want you to be unaware, my brethren, that our fathers were, the Israelites, our fathers were, and even though we might not be Jewish, we're still, like we read in Galatians, we're still Abraham's seed by faith. Our fathers, all under the cloud, passed through the sea, were all baptized in Moses, in the cloud and in the sea. We're all ate the same spiritual food, all drank the same spiritual drink, for they were drinking from a spiritual rock which followed them. That rock was Christ. Christ is our rock. Christ is our rock. How do we know Christ is our rock? How do you know that was Christ? Well, Jesus says he is our rock. He says that in Matthew chapter 7, verse 24. Matthew chapter 7, verse 24. On the Sermon on the Mount. Matthew 7, verse 24, Jesus says, after he teaches the Sermon on the Mount, he says, therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and acts on them may be compared to a wise man who built his house on the rock. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the wind blew and slammed against that house. And yet it did not fall, for it had been founded on the rock. And you know, if your house is not founded on the rock, then it's going to fall, because the wind's going to blow against it and slam against it, and great was its fall. But if you hear the words of Jesus and you act upon them, your house is built on the rock. It's built on Jesus. He's the rock. He is the rock. In Matthew chapter 21 and verse 42, Matthew chapter 21, verse 42. Jesus was talking to the Pharisees. Jesus was talking to the Pharisees, and Jesus said to them, did you ever read the scripture? The stone which the builders rejected, this became the chief cornerstone. This came about from the Lord, and it is marvelous in our sight. The chief cornerstone, the rock, the foundation. Jesus said, that scripture is referring to me. That scripture is referring to me. Jesus says, I am the stone, the chief cornerstone. He says, I am the rock, he said to the Pharisees. In Ephesians chapter 2 and verse 20, Ephesians 2 and verse 20, when Paul is telling the Gentiles in verse 19, so then you are no longer strangers and aliens, but you are fellow citizens with the saints and are of God's household, meaning the church, the kingdom, having been built on the foundation of the apostles and prophets, Christ Jesus himself being the cornerstone. Jesus himself is the foundation, the cornerstone. Jesus is the rock. And in 1 Peter chapter 2, verses 1 through 6. 1 Peter chapter 2, verses 1 through 6. First Peter chapter 2, verses 1 through 6. 1 Peter chapter 2, verses 4 through 6. 4 through 6. And coming to him as to a living stone, meaning Christ, him is Christ. Coming to Jesus as to a living stone, which has been rejected by man, but is choice and precious in the sight of God. You also, as living stones, are being built up as a spiritual house for a holy priesthood, to offer up spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God through Jesus Christ. For this is contained in Scripture. Behold, I lay in Zion a choice stone, a precious cornerstone, and he who believes in him will not be disappointed. And verse 7, and this precious value, then, is for you who believe, but for those who disbelieve, the stone which the builder rejected, this became the very cornerstone. All those scriptures about the cornerstone are Christ. He is the rock. All these talk about Jesus, our rock. He is the cornerstone. A figure of speech talking about Jesus is our rock. He's the foundation. He's the cornerstone. A figure of speech meaning that Jesus is a solid foundation for our lives. He is the Messiah. He is the Son of God. That's what it means. Christ fully reveals the character of God. Jesus lived among us, showed compassion for people. He went about doing good and teaching. Christ lived a perfect life, fulfilled the old covenant. He went to the cross and died for our sins. He did the will of the Father. He was raised from the dead to become King of Kings and Lord of Lords. He became our high priest, our mediator. In a much fuller sense now than in the Old Testament, Christ is our rock and our refuge. We have access to God through Christ, our high priest. Jesus, and as it says in Hebrews chapter 13 and verse 8, Jesus Christ is the same yesterday and today and forever. God's old covenant was with the nation of Israel. The new covenant is with those who are in Christ. In John chapter 3, verse 5, Jesus said that you're not in the kingdom of God until you are born again. In Acts chapter 2, verse 38, it tells us how we are born again. In Acts chapter 2, verse 38, on the day of Pentecost, the church was begun. Acts chapter 2, verse 38, when they were asked what they should do, when they learned about Jesus being the Messiah, being the Son of God, Peter said to them, repent, and each of you be baptized in the name of Jesus Christ for the forgiveness of your sins, and you will receive the gift of the Holy Spirit. So they were baptized into Christ. All spiritual blessings are in Christ. Ephesians 1, verse 3. We're baptized into Christ. In Christ is how we're born again. That's where all spiritual blessings are. Romans 6, verse 3 says we're baptized into Christ's death. That's where we contact the blood of Christ. That's where the grace of God gives us salvation. Gives us where we're saved. That's how a person is saved, when we're baptized into Christ. When we're in Christ, we can find grace and help in Christ. Hebrews chapter 2, verses 17 and 18 tells us that Jesus was made like us, so that we could find sympathy, and he could relate to us when we sin. Jesus was fully human and tempted like us so that he could help us with our temptations. It says, therefore he had to be made like his brethren in all things, so that he might become a merciful and faithful high priest in things pertaining to God, to make propitiation for the sins of the people. And since he himself was tempted in that which he was suffered, he is able to come to the aid of those who are tempted. In Hebrews 4, verses 14 through 16, therefore, since we have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God, let us hold fast our confession, for we do not have a high priest who cannot sympathize with our weaknesses, but one who has been tempted in all things, and yet as we, yet without sin. Therefore, let us draw near with confidence to the throne of grace, so that we may receive mercy and may find grace to help in time of need. And in 1 Peter chapter 5, verses 6 through 7, it says that God cares for us. And he wants us to give him all of our worries. We must humble ourselves before God and endure hardship. Then God will help us and strengthen us. 1 Peter 5, 6, and 7, it says, "Therefore humble yourselves under the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you at the proper time, casting all your anxiety on him because he cares for you." We are called out of darkness to be God's children, to serve him. 1 Peter chapter 2, verses 4 through 10. We are called to follow Christ and to deny ourselves and to follow Christ's example. In John chapter 13, verses 34 and 35, Jesus commanded that we love one another. Christians are to care for each other. Romans chapter 12, verses 10 through 13. Christ is much more, though, than the figure of speech, than our rock. Christ, Jesus is the Word. He's the Creator. He's the Lord God. In John chapter 1, verse 13, Jesus, he said he's the bread of life. He is the light of the world. Jesus is the door of the sheep. Jesus is the good shepherd. Jesus is the resurrection and the life. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. In other words, Jesus is everything. Jesus is King of Kings. He's Lord of Lords. He's our Master. He's our Savior. We can look to Jesus for our salvation, as our high priest, as our master. We can bow down before Jesus, humble ourselves before Jesus. We can give our lives to Jesus. He can sympathize with us because he walked here on this earth. God became human flesh. He had compassion. He healed the masses. We can give our lives to him without reservation. Jesus is the rock that everyone is searching for. Today, many people are in despair and they're in hopelessness. But they don't need to be. Many people are mired in drugs, anger, materialism, wasting their lives with no purpose. People are committing suicide and they're just wasting their lives. But Christ is calling to a world of despair. In Matthew chapter 11, verse 28, Jesus says, "Come to me, all who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest." Jesus is calling to a world who needs help. He's here. He's willing to help. He's willing to forgive. You must come to Christ for salvation. What must you do to be saved? You need to hear the gospel. The gospel is God's power for salvation. All this testimony about Jesus, it's here. It's in God's word. God's word is the power to save. The testimony about Jesus is here, about his life, about what he suffered, about what he did for mankind, and he's here to help. Jesus has power to help. Believe in Christ. Repent of your sins. Confess Jesus as Lord. Be baptized for the forgiveness of your sins. Then you can have hope. Then you can have life in Christ. And for the erring child who's gone astray, come back. Repent of your sins, confess, and then pray for forgiveness. And then live a life in Christ. Is there anything better than Jesus? Jesus is the answer. Jesus is the answer that everyone is searching for. The answer is not out in the world, not out in darkness, not out in sin, not out in drugs or materialism. All those things are empty. They're worthless. The answer is in Christ. The answer is in Jesus. Come to Jesus. If anyone is searching for answers, if anyone needs help with your problems, don't wait. If you need to study, if you have problems, we're here to study with you about Christ. We're here to study with you about salvation through Jesus Christ. That's what we're here for. If you need to study, if you need answers, we're willing to study with you about Jesus Christ. If anyone's subject to the gospel invitation, would you come forward as together we stand and sing?